Why, hello everyone. My name is Jessica Novero. Have you ever wondered what it's like to pursue your dreams in the entertainment industry? Well, lucky for you, I have a very special guest with me today. You've seen him on the red carpet and you've seen him on Peacock TV's Create the Escape. Without further ado, let's welcome Mr. Russell Ray Silva.
Hi,
Hello.
how
How
are
are
you?
you? I'm
I'm
good. How are
good.
you?
Looks like we're both good. So that's
Yes.
great. We're starting off to a good
We're
start.
on
You
the
know what?
same
It's not
page.
raining. So we'll just
Oh
say
my gosh,
like
I
that is the
know.
best thing. It was raining all weekend and we made it. And now the sun is out
Mhm.
and we're shining, we're prospering, we're doing good.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining me today.
Of course. I appreciate you having me.
I want to talk a little bit about your experiences being in the entertainment industry, kind of just from your unique perspective. So, right off the bat, what is your background? Like cultural
So,
heritage?
okay. So my background is I'm mostly Mexican,
Mhm,
indigenous Mexican. And then that I have a percentage of me, a good percentage of me that is Sicilian, third generation on both sides, and very, very in tuned with my Mexican side of my family. We're all
mhm,
very close, so that was like big cultural upbringing, or that's big culturally. As I was being raised, there's a lot of
mhm,
Mexican influence. Even in my Italian food, there's a lot of Mexican influence. So
mhm.
probably mixing things that I shouldn't, but that's why we're all big melting pot, and that's how we
Love
come up with
that.
new recipes. That's probably how Kit Kat or Reese's was made, right? It was like two different things, just threw it all
Yeah.
together and it worked.
Okay. And like all those different Kit Kat flavors, like I can't keep up, but it's
Oh, I
it's
just
all
went
delicious.
to Haneda for the first time a few weeks ago. I know this is
Oh
probably
yeah.
getting off topic, but I had like matcha Kit Kats. I had rose, what are they? Cherry blossom flavor
Rose.
Kit
Oh,
Kat. It was real
tis the
good. So
season.
if y'all get a chance to go to Haneda, do it. It's beautiful. The city is clean.
Yum.
My city probably would never be that clean, but we won't get into that.
All right. Yeah, love Japan. Speaking of, what about what is your let's kind of rewind back into the entertainment industry part of this.
Okay.
Uh, what kind of inspired you? Inspired, my words are like fleeing me. What
Inspired
inspired
me.
you to enter
Like,
the entertainment industry?
okay. Honestly, what inspired me to be in the entertainment industry is really kind of the work that goes into it and the portrayal of being able to do something or be someone that you might not necessarily be in your everyday life, right?
Mhm.
So across this camera, I might be coming off really personable, and I can be if I know you, but I'm not the type of person that's gonna walk up to someone in the bar and be like, "Hey, I'm Russell Ray." It's like, no, walk away, avoid any contact. So what I really liked about the entertainment industry is that it's just you and everyone knows why you're there, right?
Mhm.
So we're all there for a common goal. It's to have a great show to, get as many viewers as possible. Also, we're there to execute the vision. And like hundreds, this has been through like tens of 20s, if not hundreds of people prior to you even stepping on stage or
Right.
in this venue. And so growing up, like one of my first um memories is really watching Jennifer Lopez um come into one. Well, first of all, Selena, right? So
Of
that's a
course.
staple. If you're in
Yes.
our culture and you don't know that movie, what are you doing? So Jennifer Lopez was she was like the big Hispanic American English speaking
Mhm.
that really made it in the industry. You had Ricky Martin, but he also had his Spanish speaking language albums. And so Jennifer Lopez was really the one to come out of the gate English speaking.
Right.
And then post Linda Ronstadt, right?
Mhm.
So, which I grew up listening to her music with my grandmother. And so this was someone from my generation who can really inspire us as millennials. So Jennifer Lopez, like ride or die, right? Um, she really kind of created a space for herself and what she wanted to accomplish. And she took the opportunity from Selena to pursue a music career. And then she was, I think she's the only female actress in at that time in the early 2000s to both have a number one album and a number one movie in the box office.
Mm,
So that's the standard, right? And because there wasn't at the time a lot of Americanized or English speaking Hispanic superstars. A lot of
mhm,
them are Spanish language and Afro Latino or Cubano or whatever background of Latino that you were. So Celia Cruz
mhm.
is Spanish speaking, and then you have Gloria Estefan, who really made it big into the industry, um, with being bilingual.
Yeah, yeah.
She wrote Jennifer Lopez, one of Jennifer Lopez's biggest hits, "Let's Get Loud." That was Gloria Estefan's song. She wrote
That's
that.
right. Oh my gosh, I totally forgot about that.
So, I mean, as you can see, I was influenced by a lot of women because I was surrounded by a lot of women. So Jennifer Lopez really kind of paved that
Mhm.
inspiration path for me because I thought, like, wow, she can do it. So can I. Because again, and it has nothing to do with her just speaking English. She does speak Spanish. However, I came from a generation of millennials, which you might be able to relate to, that our parents wanted us to conform to an Americanized lifestyle because they experienced adversity or, you know, lack of better words, discrimination because they were Spanish speaking or they had a certain look and it was just different times back then, right? So they passed that on
Right.
and they wanted us to fit in and not have to deal with the obstacles that they did.
Mhm.
Um, so without going without further ado, getting back to your question, Jennifer Lopez is the one who inspired me.
Well, that's also exactly why I asked what your background was because I kind of wanted to see if there was any sort of like Latino influence,
Yeah.
or if there's like, is there a taboo about going into the industry within your culture? Because I know
We
within mine, there also is. It's like, that's a hobby. That's not a career.
that's exactly what it is. So we come from culture wise, we come from blue collar workers who secure either union jobs or something that you can clock in, clock out, and there's a guarantee that there's going to be a paycheck at the end of the day.
Mm,
And so part of the biggest hurdle of pursuing this was my family didn't know how to support me. They still wanted me, and like I still do, they still wanted me to make sure that I had a job which provided health insurance and benefits and that I was able to get a check every 2 weeks and that I wouldn't be out on the streets. And they wanted me to pursue this at the same time they didn't want me to because it's unsure and it's not guaranteed and everybody wants the star on the walk of fame, right? Everyone wants that $1 million paycheck, and that's not the reality of the situation. Is you really have to take on these odd jobs or these little side gigs in order to make that happen. But you're facing this I'm trying to look for the right words. You're facing like criticism, right? From
mhm.
within your own family, let alone everyone else in the industry where you're trying to make that where
Right.
everyone's judging you on how good or bad you are at your craft. So your family is like, well, don't pursue this, but don't pursue it too much because when you fall, you need
Right.
something to fall back on. And
Right.
it's like, okay, so I tried to set myself up for the most success. I worked my way through high school. I worked my way through college. I secured a broadcasting degree because at the time, the only way I knew how to get on television was through what Juliana Rancic said, and she had a degree in journalism and broadcasting. So I went and got a
Mhm.
degree in broadcasting and journalism.
Right.
And fast forward, I did land my show on Create the Escape, but there was many, many odd jobs that came or smaller jobs before that gig even, presented itself to me. And like they say, you have to have the best chance for your opportunity is setting yourself up for success and putting yourself in the path for opportunity.
Mhm.
But definitely um, some of my biggest hurdles have been having a support system because no one knows how to support you because this is such a taboo thing to pursue, which obviously it lays out on the numbers. If you do UCLA puts out a report every year
Mhm.
about the different ethnic backgrounds that pursue or that have speaking roles in any type of film, whether it's commercials, television, film, streaming, cable. All of those things are covered in this report. And a lot of people are actually surprised to find out that the Asian community and the Hispanic community are two in the same, or one in the same. They're neck and neck at their numbers. And below them, who has even smaller representation, is the South Asian Indian community. So
Mhm.
it's very much I think it has to do with our own doing culturally. Of our families don't want to see us struggle. Our family don't want to see us fall flat
Right.
on our
Well, yeah,
faces.
because they've lived the struggle, and I feel like
Exactly.
that kinda translates into, like, how, they envision us kind of pursuing
So
it,
what it
like
is
mm,
it's a deterrent, right? So they're
yeah,
trying to deter
yeah,
you from getting your hopes up in this industry because they don't want you to have to start from square one when you're in your 30s or
mhm.
40s.
Did you ever
But
feel discouraged at any point, like, pressure to kind of, like, drop your dreams in order to kind of find something stable?
oh, 100%. I think, well, here's the thing. I've always been this person of invincibility, if that's the right way to put that.
We
I
can
know
make
that
it a
was weird.
word.
I know that was a weird face I just
It makes
made.
sense.
But I've always been this person who's wanted to be invincible because I've always been told that I couldn't. I've always been told that, even by advisors in
Mhm.
college, you're not good looking enough. You're not. There was so many things that I wasn't, right, in order to get in this industry. And I thought to myself, I'm going to show you. I'm going to prove you wrong. And I
Mhm.
think that's kind of the attitude that you have to have. Like, even if your family is like, you can't possibly make this goal, right? It's 1% of everybody in the United States who makes it onto television or who actually lands something that's huge. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, I'm gonna do it. I
Mhm.
am. I'm gonna make this happen. But I've also told people, don't force things in life. So if you have to feel it within yourself, like if you don't feel it here, if you don't honestly feel that in your aura that this is where you're supposed to be, then you shouldn't be pursuing it because it's not going to happen. And I've always felt in
100%.
my heart that I was going to be this person, right? That I was going to have these opportunities. I always knew that I would also have a little bit of a break. I didn't know how or when or how long it would be, but I always knew that that would happen too because I knew that I would have to regroup and figure out what exactly I wanted to get to.
Yeah.
Um, but some of the biggest challenges have definitely been um figuring out where you want to go because there's so many avenues, but also some of those avenues get cut off
Yeah.
as you're on the path to get there. You're like, what
Yeah,
just happened?
absolutely. Yeah, that's totally true. Can we kind of, I know I mentioned that you've been on the red carpet. I kinda wanna tell everyone, like, what else have you done? Like, I know you've been featured on TMZ,
Hmm.
your big, Peacock TV debut.
Yeah,
You wanna
that was the definition of opportunity, chance, and really kind of setting yourself up for success. You have to be ready for your opportunities. So, how this all started was I was dating someone in junior high school.
junior
Very
high.
junior high school, right? Because like back then, everybody wanted to be Keisha Cole in love. So we
Oh
were
my
all Keisha Cole in love.
gosh.
Everybody had a MySpace, and you would dictate your songs to your emotions that week, that day. Your top eight
Was
really
that your
dictated
song?
if you had friends or not.
Was Keisha
So
Cole your song on your MySpace?
At one point, Keisha Cole was my song. At the other point, the Step Up soundtrack was my song.
I'll step
Um,
up, okay.
so this all started with I always, since I was a kid, have said that I wanted to be on television. I used to take a Gatorade bottle, Powerade, because we couldn't really afford Gatorade at the time. Used to take a Powerade bottle and I would put on commercials in the living room for my grandparents. And I'd be like, hi, my name is Russell, and I drink Powerade because I'm an athlete, and athletes drink Powerade. I did it so many times, and I actually drank it so many times. I made myself barf uh,
Ew. I mean,
in
that's
the living room.
commitment. That's commitment right
But
there.
I was destined. I was like, I'm gonna make this
Yeah.
happen, right? And at the time, I was playing sports, and I was in my dad used to run this lowrider bike club, and he had a car club, and I had a lowrider bike, and all of these things. Right, my brother still has it in his garage to this day. So fast forward, I told the person that I was dating in junior high school that I wanted to be on television. They were like, "There's absolutely no way. You're not even cute enough to be on television." I was like, "Well, first of all, you're dating me, so like, get out of here." And as it progressed, and as I was going into high school, I didn't really fit in with the theater kids. Like it really wasn't my jam. I loved playing sports, but at the same time, I knew in my heart that I needed to pursue this in some way, shape, or form. So I tried everything. I went to acting classes. I drug my parents to acting seminars on the weekends because I wanted to be Brenda Song. I wanted to be everyone on the Disney Channel. I was submitting. I was
Mhm.
doing headshots. I was hiring people at 16 to take my headshots, and I didn't even know what I was doing, but I just was making it happen, right? So then Juliana Rancic at the time revamped E! News, and she started talking. That's when E! True Hollywood Story was big. So
Mhm.
Juliana told her story, and she talked about having a journalism degree. I'm like, okay, she has that. I found out about Ryan Seacrest having one. Like, Ryan has that, so clearly this is the path. So I put myself through community college, worked at a burger joint during that time, um, transferred over to the University of Laverne. And the only reason I chose the University of Laverne was because Ross Matthews had went to the University of Laverne. And I'm like, if he did it, I'm just one letter of the alphabet off from Ross, right? It's Russ. So just change the O to a U and we made it. So I'm like, if it worked for him, it can work for me. Um, Fast forward, I end up meeting him as I'm working for TMZ, landed
Mhm.
that right out of college because again, my advisor was like, "You're never gonna make it in this industry." And I'm like, "Well,
Watch me.
your mother didn't make it in this industry, right?" So I was doing it and like no one was gonna stop me. And so I go in for the interview at TMZ, have no idea what I'm doing or like what I'm talking about. Tesla was barely coming up at the time. Well, still kind of like a new-ish thing. It wasn't really
Mhm.
like the topic of conversation. And so they're like, if you run into Jaden Smith or if you run into Will Smith, what are you asking him? And I said, the first thing I would ask Will Smith if I had to interview him would be, what does Jaden think about the Tesla SUV? Because he's the first person to be given one at the
Mm.
time. And even the producers at that time did not know. And I just pulled this out the top of my head because I had no idea what they were going to ask me. And they even asked me, do you watch the show? I said, no, which is probably not the right thing to say.
Yeah.
Uh, so then I go there. And then like at that point, like I'm hitting these big celebrities and I have like I had good rapport with them because I wasn't asking them these divey questions that these clickbait people want to be asked that want to ask or that they want asked. So I like Ellen DeGeneres was talking to me, Ryan Seacrest was talking to me, Montel Jordan was talking to me. Their publicists would call me like, "Can you meet this person in this place?" Like on my phone. I still have some of their numbers on here. And they would call me like, "Can you meet us?" So cool. So then I was like meeting with the Jacksons at the time and like Latoya Jackson and her fiance at the time. And there was just a lot going on there. And then I was promoted to work for their sister company called 2Fab. And I was doing the red carpets for 2Fab. And I was at Elton John's Oscar viewing party.
Ooh.
And that is when
Was it
um
fabulous?
it was amazing. It was amazing. I was dressed up, having a bow tie, like, and people were noticing, right? Because I try to take care of my skin, try to take care of my body, like really try to like put myself to the T. And so this is when they handed out the wrong award at the
Mm.
Oscars. They gave it
Oh, yeah.
to that whole shabacle happened, right? And we're all on
Was
the
it
red carpet, like, oh my goodness, like what just happened? And right. And
Emma Stone year, right?
Emma Stone, yes, like Sierra walks out and Sierra's like mind blown. Caitlyn Jenner's walking out. Everyone's like so confused on what just happened and how this happened. And
Yeah.
then at that time, I start pulling people and start asking them questions. And then someone noticed me and they're like, "Who do you work for?" And I'm like, "I work for 2Fab." And they're like, "Okay, but like, are you the person who's supposed to be here interviewing?" I'm like, "Well, technically, like I'm producing and I'm camera and this is my talent." And my talent was just off to the corner doing nothing. And so I'm like interviewing all these people. So that person was like, "Give me a call because I'm going to introduce you to a few people. And I think that you should go build your reel at AfterBuzz TV because you have a lot to offer." And so I went to AfterBuzz TV, left TMZ, and I started doing these after shows. and Maria Menounos runs AfterBuzz
Yeah.
TV, and she is the CEO and owner of it. And so I started getting red carpet opportunities there, and I'm doing Shazam, and I'm doing Love Simon, I'm doing all these other things, and then the world shuts down,
Oh.
and I'm like, oh no, my career, like what am I gonna do? And then
Mhm.
TikTok started becoming big, and then I started doing TikTok, and then I started going viral on TikTok. But then again, my family's like, don't do TikTok. Like that's for kids. And like the internet is like the devil. And it's like all these things, right? Because Hispanic people don't believe in the internet for some reason. And then I'm like, okay, so then we start remodeling my mom's house in the midst of COVID. We're like going to the lumber yard. They're loading up the truck. We're driving it back to the house. We're knocking out where I'm filming everything. And then there comes the casting for DIY home renovators for
Mhm.
HGTV. And I'm
Mhm.
like, I have nothing else to do. Might as well submit. So I
Yeah.
submit that. And then a few weeks later, I get a phone call like, hey, we want to film you and your mom remodeling your house. Right. Which that opened a whole nother can of worms, because my mother was like, I'm not going to be on television. Like, there's Mexican ladies, do not get them on television. They don't want it. Like, I'm not going to get on television. I'm not going to have this world ridicule me. And you're like, oh my gosh, like, what is happening? So I'm like, you need to do this. This is for my career. And this has nothing to do with you. Like, this is all about me. You're getting a bonus because your house is going to get done. Right. So we're like going like cats and dogs back and forth. And then we finally got to the filming stage. We're like in the third or fourth week of filming. This lady walks in. Her name is Shay Holland. Unbeknownst to me, I had been part of her Facebook group, who she like hundreds, if not like there's like 3,000 hosts that are based in Los Angeles and the greater LA area, who are all part of this Facebook group. And I'm always
Yeah.
seeing castings go up. I never thought to fill one out because I always thought my reel's not good enough. And then Shay walks on set, and I'm like, she sees me doing my stand-ups for HGTV. We start talking. I'm like, wait, aren't you the person that has that Facebook group like in Los Angeles for hosts? And she goes, oh my gosh, yeah. And I'm like, I've been following you for years. I just never thought that I was able to submit for my casting. That day, she got a phone call earlier in the morning from Barbara Barna Abel, who's based in New York. And she said, we're looking for a diverse television host who knows what they're doing in DIY or construction or renovations. And it has to be submitted by the end of the day. So we're
Oh.
filming for HGTV. And then,
Yeah.
because we all had to get COVID tested, then
Yeah.
Shay is coming to like another room in my house. I have my laptop up. We're throwing all the footage that I possibly could find on the internet onto a reel. Then I'm like shooting like this, like, hey, I'm Russell Ray. I love kids. I love, all these things, which I have 7 nieces and nephews. So you got to love kids, because if not, you're just going to die. So then I submit it. I get a phone call within a week. Hey, we're interested. I'm like, great. So Barbara Barna Abel's Barbara Barna Abel introduces me to the executive producers at NBC Universal who are building this show. And they had already shot the pilot, but they lost that host. So they
Mhm.
were looking for one, and they needed that. Like, this was like the 9th hour. From what the executive producer told me, they already gone through like 4,000 tapes before they even got to mine. And so I was like in the third round, the last round of like, they couldn't find anyone that they liked. So then I submitted, and they're like, sign him. Right. I didn't know this. They just were introducing me because they wanted to. So then this general meeting, it's like, boom, 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 boom. Like all these producers popping up, and it's like me in the center. It's like, hey. And I had no idea what to do.
Hi.
So then they're like, we would like to offer you the job. And I'm like, what? Like me? Right. And then my family's like, that's not gonna happen. I'm like, what do you mean? Like that's the thing, right? So like Hispanic people will be like,
Yeah.
like, what does
I
that
can
mean? Is that
totally
like
hear it.
approval? Is that disapproval? Like, what is it? So then, fast forward, like I landed the show, and now like it's still running on Peacock TV. And like now I'm in a space of I'm regrouping on how I want to move forward. I do
Mhm.
like working with children. I love kids. I also know that comes with great responsibility, right? You have to cater a lot to kids, and so I'm kind of refining the way that I interact, because that is a craft in itself. You have to be able to master that, because kids can climb up on camera. And
Mhm.
so, all these obstacles you kind of make it happen. And like at the same time, I was appeasing my family of like having a 9 to 5 and having insurance. And so that's just like, so that's literally my whole path of how do I got to where I'm at now. So it's been a
Awesome.
long journey, and it doesn't happen
I mean,
overnight. That was over the path of like
that is prime
uh
example of just, opportunity presenting itself and, just grabbing
that's
at it.
12 years
That
right there.
yeah.
From high school, from the time I decided I was going to do this, that's 12 years to the time I landed my first gig,
Mhm.
or like my first major television gig.
Mhm. I know you
So
mentioned, that they wanted a diverse cast.
mhm.
What was your experience with was it actually diverse? Because I know some
they
people's
were looking they were looking for a diverse host,
Mhm.
um, because that's what they needed, and that's
Right.
where I came in, because
Mhm.
the other two hosts were of non um
Minority?
yes,
Okay.
they were they were non-minority, like they're not necessarily 100% Mexican, but they have different backgrounds that didn't express diversity, right? So
Mhm.
they wanted to make sure that they hit that base. And then
Right.
you have little old me, like little Mexican me with curly hair, like here I come, like running down the aisle, like hire me. So yes, so that's how I made it happen. But that's the thing, is like you have to make yourself known and present in this industry, because no one is going to pay attention to you. And then, just again, sometimes, being of our culture, we can be our own biggest obstacle, because we almost discourage each other to go into the industry because of the uncertainty.
Mm.
And so not only is that an internal struggle, but it's an external struggle as well, because you have these people on the outside telling you don't do it because you're not going to go anywhere with it. And then you have the person within you that's been raised to have secure everything, right?
Mhm. Right.
Make sure you always have money in the bank. Make sure you have money under the mattress, like stuffed in an envelope, right? Because again,
Yeah.
Hispanic people don't always believe in banks either. So there's always like cash somewhere. And my boyfriend can tell you that now. Like I always have cash stuffed everywhere. Like everywhere. I'm not going to tell you
Well,
where,
don't
because I don't want
tell
anybody to break in my
everybody.
house. But like it's the stability.
Right.
It's the great climb of like we came to this country and we fought so hard so that you can have a life and that you can pursue these, like you can pursue careers, and like meaning become a doctor, become a lawyer, things that like are from A to B and B to
Mhm.
C and C to D, and that there's a very clear strung out path to get there.
Right. Yeah.
And so that's what our culture prides themselves on, is having a straight path to get to where you are. Well, being gay, my path is like this anyways. So um
Nothing's straight.
nothing is
Nothing
straight.
is straight.
So it's not gonna happen. So I'm like, here we go. So definitely faced a lot of obstacles with trying to prove to my family that this industry is worth it. This industry is worth my time. This is where my
Mhm.
heart is. This is where I want to be. And my mom
Mhm.
learned that firsthand. And she really started to get behind me once we started filming for HGTV, because she realized these are 15-hour days. I'm really putting my heart and soul into this here. And she's like, wow, I never understood what this takes,
Mhm.
which still made her apprehensive about should you pursue this. But then when I got the opportunity, thank goodness that they were like kind of like weaving into each other.
Yeah.
Um, that she almost had to support me, because it was like, well, you're already in contract negotiations.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
and then at that time, I didn't have an agent. I didn't have anything. So, like, I contacted Barbara and I was like, Barbara, do you know anybody that can represent me? So then she introduced me to friends in the industry of hers they're great. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Lensley, a law firm, amazing. And then I was contacting every agent under the sun that I can find. And then finally
Mhm.
someone said yes. And then we went in for negotiations. And 2 weeks after wrapping for HGTV, I was on set filming.
Amazing. That's
It's-
a huge
Are you out of
accomplishment.
breath? Because I am.
Did you ever feel like there was a time where you had to approach things differently, being Latino, being a member of the LGBTQIA plus community? Um, did you ever experience any um, discrimination or any hardships due to any being a member of any of those
I
two?
wouldn't say, I don't think I've experienced discrimination
Mhm.
firsthand within the industry. I will say I think everybody kind of tries to protect their own, if that makes sense, right? So like Hispanics are more inclined to take care of other Hispanics. If you're African American, you're more inclined to take care of your African American friends. If
Yeah,
you're Asian,
you
like
can work with
you kind of try to
personal
bring your
struggle.
community
Yeah,
up. So I think
yeah.
that's probably like the hardest thing is that I didn't know. I still don't know very many Hispanic people in the industry. We are in this era though, thankfully, where you have huge artists that are like Rosalia, Carol G, that are all really on this big Hispanic boom that's going on in these 2020s, or as these little children would say, in the 20s, which is like,
Oh, ouch.
are we going through a second set of rolling 20s? Um, so, now I'm starting to make more connections.
Hmm.
And so I think that's probably the biggest obstacle is like, you have to be a chameleon, not necessarily with who you are, but you have to be able to fit in with a lot of different cultures because there's not a lot of your culture who has English speaking anyways that you know are in this industry, right? Because
Hmm.
we pride ourselves, like Hispanics pride themselves on speaking our native language. And if you don't speak the native language, it's like, and you're like,
I
please
can't.
hire me.
I can't. I like unhear it in the exact way you're saying it, just like in a conversation, like with my boyfriend's family, and I'm just like, oh, I hear it. I hear
Well,
it.
it is, right? So it's like, please hire me. Like, like my Spanish is broken. I am a no sabo child, but like, please help me. Um, and so I think that probably relates to what you're asking there is like,
Yeah.
I think there's discrimination everywhere you turn,
Right.
no matter where you're at. And I think um we also are in this era right now where people feel like they can have this voice
Hmm.
of discrimination. And so you can't
Oh,
do
yeah.
anything about that, right? Other than pride yourself on who you are and be proud of who you are and what you are
Hmm.
and just keep moving forward because there's
Right.
always going to be critics and people who tell you that you can't or you won't or you never will. But I think it's really important to know that the more powerful you are, the louder other people will be in your face.
Hmm.
Right. So as you're starting to make it, those people are just gonna like come out of the woodworks to let you know that
Right.
you're not supposed to be
Yeah.
here. Or they don't want you
But
there.
then I feel like
We see Beyonce
that's,
right now with her country album, and
yeah.
that's going on with her. And she has, I think she has like 15 top songs right now on the Hot 100 because of her country album. She has a number
Oh, it's
one
so
on
good.
the country album. She's the first Black woman to have a number one on the country album. Like,
Hmm.
you know, so you're always going to have these obstacles that you face. It's just
Hmm.
really being grounded and knowing who you are, and also like diversifying yourself and knowing what it's like to experience other cultures and be part of other cultures. I had a lot of
Hmm.
African American friends growing up. I probably had more African American friends growing up than I had Mexican friends, because most of those friends that were Mexican were my cousins. So you know how that goes. Um, so yeah, so I think, to answer your question, have I faced discrimination? Not that I'm aware of,
Hmm.
you know, because I tend to not block stuff like that out, but stuff like that doesn't phase me
Hmm.
because at the end of the day, I'm still gonna win. So
Hmm.
if you want to be discriminatory, that's okay because I'm still gonna win, and you
Hmm.
can go somewhere else with all that mess, right? Because you have to be the strongest one in the room. You do.
Right.
You have to be
Yeah.
invincible, and so yeah.
That's, I like how you've like, that's been your thing since you were little. Like, you got to be invincible. That's awesome.
You have to be invincible.
Yeah.
You got to reinvent yourself, right?
Hmm.
Did I ever think that I was going to be doing DIY and like renovations? And no, but that my mom, I used to come home and the floor would be gone. And it's like, we're laying floors next week. And it's like, where is the floor? You know? Or she'd be like, we're expanding the bathroom. Like, I'm 10 years old. Why is the wall missing? What is going on? So that kind of like got me to where I'm at. And even people in the industry now will say, hey, I really think you should lean into design.
Hmm.
Um, and so I'm trying to figure out right now, I'm in a space of where I'm trying to figure out of how I can stand out in the design space, right? Especially as Hispanic, male, my goal is really to have my own show and to have a set of tools with Lowe's or Home Depot or a major home improvement store and be the face of an LGBTQ line of tools, because
Mhm.
just because we're gay or we're bisexual or we're lesbian or we're trans doesn't mean we don't know how to get down around the house. Okay.
Right.
I know plenty of computer whizzes who are straight, who have no idea what an Allen wrench is, what a socket wrench is, what a ratchet is. They think you say ratchet,
E-ratchet.
they think a ratchet of a person, right? But a
Yeah.
ratchet is an actual tool.
Mhm.
So I would love to be that face of that. You know, there's a lot of LGBTQ individuals who have furniture lines,
Mhm.
uh, but I want the tools, right? Not only that, because like
Yeah.
my people a lot work in construction. So it's like, let
Right.
me get you some good tools, right? And let
Right.
me get you some good gay tools.
And go
So, and
good
so
gay tool. But
let me get
I
you the gay
kinda
tools.
like that. That is
And so
awesome.
that's who I want to be.
Yeah.
Now where the world's going to take me, I don't know. So maybe design might be out of the question in 5 years. And it's like, you're actually going to be doing, you're actually going to cook because your experiences of traveling around the world. I
Mhm.
do, I'm international a lot. So it's like maybe
Mhm.
that'll pull influence. Maybe if I don't pull influence from design out of travel, maybe that'll influence something else of cooking. Or like I'm also very fit. I go to the gym 5, 6 times a week. So maybe something like that will happen. So it's all about being able to diversify yourself
Right.
around people and around and within your career. Right.
Mhm.
Like another thing that is very Americanized is that you have to have a niche. And in
Yeah.
every other country in the television industry, when you're a host, you have to be
That's true.
diversified.
Mhm.
But in
That's
America,
true.
you have to be diversified and niche.
Mhm.
So, like, again, I just told you specifically, I want to be a gay contract or a gay DIY designer who has his own set of tools, right? Because
Mhm.
it's like you have to know what you're going to get. And so you got to be able to tell that to people when you walk into the room. Like, this is the color I want my tools to be,
Mhm.
which I'm not going to
Rainbow.
tell nobody because I don't want nobody to steal my idea. So y'all mind your business. Um, and this is where I wanted at, and these are the two companies that I want to present to.
Mhm.
Um, and I think it'd be great for someone like me, but younger, to look up and see myself,
Mhm.
because I can be the face that is familiar to them of, wow, he did it. There's hope for me too.
Yeah.
And then I can also be the pillar for, Hispanic parents to look at like, oh, okay, he made it. He's all right. Yes, he's gay. Like he's all right.
Mhm.
Okay. Things like that. Um, and then if I ever had kids, if I ever had the money to have a full-time nanny like the Kardashians
Oh, I
and
thought you
have
were gonna say a
kids.
full-time kid.
Nope. Full a full-time nanny. Because as with the industry, every single person who is booked and busy has a full-time nanny. So we will only have kids if I have a full-time nanny. And then at that point, my children will be next to me in that tools section. And it's like, this is what it is. Because I want to encourage other people to like get down and dirty. You don't have to be, there's this facade of
Mhm.
like, so right. So like I have two things, right? So like one being part of the LGBTQ community, the other one being
Yeah.
Hispanic. And it's like in the Hispanic world, you have to be macho, but then in the
Oh,
LGBTQ world, it's like you can't be toxic
yes.
masculinity.
Right.
So it's the fine line of both. But I want people to know that like you can be LGBTQ and you can also be like tough with elbow grease. Like you can
Mhm.
do demolition. That doesn't make you less of who you are as a person. Just like it doesn't make someone less masculine to be a computer whiz and not know how to use tools and be straight.
Right.
Right? Like you're just talented at something else. But I want
Mhm.
people to be able to do this. I want I want people to see that you can also be like a hardcore mechanic and be gay and proud.
Mhm.
And so like
Right.
I think we need spaces for that. Um and I also plan on opening I have my own production company, but I also plan to write my own scripts of lifestyles like this because we need to see more of it. We
Right.
we see it's always the straight couples we see in these television shows that are mechanics or hitmen. Like, why can't there be a gay hitman that's like just as like, it's like, yeah, I'm going home to my fine husband. Like, yes, and you got a silencer. Like, we want to see that.
Oh my God.
Like, one of my ultimate goals is to collaborate with Harlan Coben, and he has the best murder mystery stories, and I want there to
I
be a
love a good
gay
murder
one
mystery.
with just
Yeah.
like this sexy man with a silencer, and he goes home to his husband, who's also
Delicious. Delicious.
100%. And this is getting you all off topic, so go ahead and keep asking questions.
No. I mean, it kind of segues into what I was going to ask next. Like, you did mention, like, you got to be like, in your culture, there is this culture of like machismo. Like, for people
Mhm.
who don't know, do you want to kind of elaborate on what that kind of entails? And being third generation, I think you mentioned you were third
Third
generation.
generation, yeah.
Yeah. Do you think
So,
that culture is still alive?
culture, like, within me?
No, not within you. Just like, I mean, like,
Well, what do you
kind
mean
of,
culture is still alive? Like, do you mean like that we're still practicing,
yeah. Do you
like
still
our
see that within like the community? Do you see that more so in like the newer generations, or are they kind of just starting to phase out the machismo culture? Is that more
Oh,
something
okay.
like an old generation type thing,
Got
or
it.
is it
I
still very
think
much present?
I think in the Hispanic and the Latino community, I think what fathers pride themselves on is the whole reason that like the machismo thing comes into play is because they want like Hispanic men pride themselves on being providers,
Mm,
because a lot of times Hispanic men are the sole providers, and a lot in my family that was the case. I would say about 50% of like
hmm
the men in my family were the providers for their spouse, and so there's this false mindset if you find out that your child is LGBTQ or trans or any part of the community, is that they're not going to be providers. And then it's also a blow to the Hispanic men that like, am I gonna be a grandfather? Right. Because they
hmm
also pride themselves on that, like, because they've worked so hard to grow and expand their families and there's family tree. And Hispanics, we're all about family. So I think for machismo men, it is taboo because they
hmm
just don't understand.
hmm
Um, uh, like that love can come in many different forms.
Right. Yeah.
Um, but also I think it's more fear of also their sons or their daughters who come out to be lesbian or bisexual, as well as their sons who come out to be gay, bisexual, or trans,
hmm
that they're going to be looked down upon or looked at as weak or something of that fashion. And so I think a lot of it has to also do with fear of being discriminated against, because there's a lot of discrimination that happened in their past,
Right.
especially for baby boomers and generations prior, right? So
Yeah.
they've dealt with being discriminated against because they spoke a different language, and a lot of people don't realize that over 2 million Mexican naturalized born citizens here when World War II were deported to Mexico. A lot of people
hmm
don't know that,
Right. Yeah.
unwillingly.
hmm
And so they've already faced a lot of things. So when it comes to being macho and they want their sons to be macho and these big tough guys, because they don't want no one to mess with them.
hmm
And so I
hmm
think the false idea that anybody in the LGBTQ community would be weaker than a straight man,
hmm
is where that idea kind of comes into play. Is it they machismo men almost think that it's demasculating.
hmm
um but I've seen a lot of gay men who can beat up straight men. I've seen a lot of them. And so there shouldn't be any fear there, and I do
Right.
think that that's more of a dying breed.
hmm
um Especially with Gen Z. I will say I
hmm
100% appreciate with Gen Z that these young ladies in Gen Z don't care if their boyfriends have been with a man or have been with a woman. They're really kind of identifying love with like, I love you as a person. I like you as a person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I
That's
really appreciate that about them, because they're changing the tides, right? So
mhm.
they're really the type that will just walk out on a job and be like, I don't need this job. You're racist.
Yeah.
You're sexist. You don't support these things that I believe in. So good luck finding employment. And then they put it on TikTok and they put it on Instagram, and then people really start boycotting these businesses. So I will say, I do, to go back to your question, I do think that the machismo mindset is more of a dying breed. I think one of the most beautiful videos on the internet is this young man who was doing a makeup tutorial, and he was putting his eyelashes on, and his dad unexpectedly comes home. He turns off the lights and it goes dark. And the dad is asking him in Spanish, why are you sitting here in the dark? And he was like, oh, nothing, no reason, right? He kind of like brushes it off. And the dad turns on the lights and he sees that he has the makeup and the sun is like this. And he's like, what's wrong? And he like turns to him, and the kid just had, just, all right, this is what it is. I got to turn and like own it now. And the dad told him, I don't care what you do. I don't care who you are. I just want you to do it, and I want you to do it good. If you're going to do makeup, do it good. Because he wanted him to be the best.
Yeah.
I think that's probably one of the most beautiful videos that I've seen on Instagram. And every time I see it, I repost it for that reason. Because that man, you could tell, probably at some point had a machismo mindset, but he transitioned that into being like, you're still going to be good. I want you to be good at what this is. I want you to be good at makeup, and I want you to be the best at it. And so I think this mindset is changing, and we're getting to this new place that, you can also be macho, but in a different sense. Right.
And I think you defined it in your aspirations. You were kind of redefining what it means to be like a provider, like what it means to show strength and all that stuff that like are traditionally mirrored in machismo culture, machismo mindset, but like in a different way. Like it's not just the one. No, it's gender, whatever gender. What's the word? Specific. Neutral? Or whatever.
Specific. Yeah.
Specific. That's the one. she's specific.
So I think we are moving into this new era, which I really appreciate. Fathers are growing and learning more and engaging more. We just went to a wedding. My boyfriend and I went to a wedding a little over a year ago, and the dad was like, I love my son. I love his spouse. And I think we're just the Hispanic community is really getting to this new place of like thorough acceptance with no hangups or ties.
Yeah. What do you think contributed to that kind of acceptance, other than like, like there's social media, there's Gen Z and stuff like that?
I think, sorry, I had to give us a little bit more light because it was getting dark. I think what contributed to that is the fact that being Hispanic, we are outspoken, and we're going to march to the beat of our own drums. And, we're going to throw it in your face until you accept it. I really think that's what it is. And I think anybody who kind of turned their kids down is like, nope, this is who I am. And guess what? We're here now when it's Christmas. Guess what? We're here again when it's Thanksgiving. And I think we really were that generation, especially millennials. I really think that we were that generation that we're going to show up. And it's like, well, we don't want you here. Like, well, too bad, because I'm at the table, I'm eating your food and you paid for it. So good luck. Because that's who we are. And I think fathers finally started really realizing that, like, my son's not different. He just loves someone that looks like him instead.
Yeah.
Of the like same gender, like.
Yeah.
But then there are those couples who start to look the same. It's like same hair, same eyebrows, same clothes, and you're like, wait a minute.
Oh, hold up now.
I have a couple friends who are couples, and I'm like, y'all starting to look a little bit too much alike.
You are now one person.
So that is, I think that was one of the deciding factors of changing that generation, is that millennials were really going to be in your face.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter what you said, we were still going to show up, and we were not going to miss Christmas or Thanksgiving or Easter. We were going to be there.
That's important.
Yeah, we were not going to be left out, and we were going to show up.
You can't miss that kind of food.
And then I think the mothers started getting behind their children in the sense of like, well, the father, you can go. I want my kids here, right? Because Hispanic moms pride themselves on their children, and they will
Hmm.
throw themselves on a sword for their children. And so I think that
Yeah.
also made the men change.
Hmm.
Of, well, I guess I have to deal with this, and I say that with full consciousness of how it sounds,
Hmm.
of saying dealing with this, right? But that's really what was going through their mind, is I have to deal with this. And they dealt with it within themselves, and they figured out whatever they had to figure out in their minds
Hmm.
to understand who we are as individuals.
Right. Do you have any projects coming up that are kind of influenced by your identities?
I do. I don't
Tell
want to
us
say it out
more.
loud.
Tell us
I
a little something.
I don't want to give too much detail. However,
Hmm.
it does involve drag queens,
Hmm.
and it'll be a new spin on interviews with drag queens
Hmm.
and embracing the community.
Hmm.
Um, I don't want to give my idea away too much.
No,
Embracing
that's all
the
right. That's all
community,
right.
um, and immersing themselves more into the community, and really showing the community that drag queens are essential. And actually, drag queens help individuals identify with themselves better,
Yeah.
because they teach them to be confident within their own skins, gay, straight, bi, trans, all the above. um Drag queens really, I think that this narrative lately that's been spun is that drag queens are harmful for some reason, and really drag queens are shaping the world for us to be more individualized and
Hmm.
love ourselves within our own skin, right? So like, I'm
Hmm.
wearing a semi see-through t-shirt with a bomber jacket and I love it, but
Hmm.
that's who I am. So this next project that I'm working on, which I've when I go on my work trips, I'm really kind of like my laptop, really trying to figure out how I want, because I want the best product.
Yeah.
Um, and so it definitely has to do with drag queens, a new spin on how they perform, and immersing themselves into the community and getting the community involved with their performance.
Hmm.
And so that is where I will leave that. I don't know when
Hmm.
it's going to come out, but I will say it will be out before the end of the year.
Yes. Cannot wait.
And I will be, of
Um,
course, I will be hosting, of course.
Love that. We love to see it.
And
Is there anything?
I do have something that I'm writing right now currently, that there is a big move that potentially will be happening,
Mhm.
of relocation wise. And if that's the case, then this project will be presented to somebody that I know who works at NBC.
Oh, ooh, big moves. Is there anything else that you want to highlight or talk about that you think is important within the Latino or the LGBTQIA plus community that you want to
I
say
think,
before we go
yes.
today?
Yes, I think my final words will be, if you're pursuing something and there is hesitation in the way that you're being supported, just sit your family down and let them know that you're okay. You're okay. You've
Mm,
already mentally taken on what this is going to cost you, emotionally, physically, and all the things that come with this territory. There's going to be exhausting nights. There's going to be long nights. There's going to be a big stretch of time where you're building yourself and really coming into who you are and shaping yourself as an artist. And so, with that being said, be proud of who you are. Be conscious of who you are, and what and who you're inspiring, because these networks really want to know that you're conscious of your audience, and that you're not doing yourself more harm than good. Everyone has their slip ups now and then, nothing crazy. So definitely make sure you have a good image on yourself, that people can look to you for inspiration, and that you're always moving the needle forward and not back.
mm,
No one wants to step to back in time. Everyone wants to go forward in time, whether they want to admit it or not.
yeah.
So that will be my word of advice for anybody who is pursuing this industry, especially if you're Hispanic or if you're part of the LGBTQ community. Definitely know that you are invincible. You have what it takes. You have to feel it though before you pursue it. Don't force nothing that is not meant for you. It will happen if it's meant to be. You just have to keep doing the work that it takes to find out your craft.
Beautiful words of wisdom from our very own Russell Ray. All right. Well, I think that's all I got for you today. I know you're losing a lot of light over there.
I know it's getting dark. Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate you. Please, whatever you need. If anyone wants to reach out to me, you're more than welcome to. You can find me on Instagram at Russell X Raymond. It's my first name and my middle name, just times in the middle. Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. You can find my podcast, which I'll be relaunching once I get resettled into the new space. All over the internet, either Russell Ray Silva or Russell X Raymond is where you can find me. And I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. If you have a reel that you want me to watch or you want some feedback, please let me know. Go to my website, russellraysilva.com.
All right. There you have it, guys. Our very own Russell Ray. Thank you again so much for joining us. And can't wait to see what you do next.
Thank you. I will see you later.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.